hey, I'm thinking of looking at a CBSE school versus an IB school versus an Cambridge school versus an ICSE school. What is it that I can look at? What are the possible things that we can explore? Or you're looking at subject combinations or understanding that perhaps for some students, subject choices may come sooner than later, etc. Your basic understanding of the boards is going to help you. By all means, feel free to be able to go to the websites of each of these boards. Two of these are international boards, two of these are national boards. Look through the website to understand the gamut of subjects that are offered. And by all the options that they give now, the changes that are happening, very rapid amount of change taking place in a lot of the boards. And what kind of books do they use, etc., etc. So that'll give you a deeper understanding. But do you need to do that deep dive and be able to become a board expert in order to become a career coach? No, not really. You need to be able to at least have an understanding. There may be one board that you have taught in, maybe if you teach, or if you have thought about the fact that you'd like to be able to get a deeper understanding of one of the boards, then deep dive into those as well. So let me go ahead and kind of look at the answers. Is doing Cambridge board benefits in foreign university? It can. I'll come to that, Rita. Not to worry. I'll cover that. Your ICSE, as mentioned here, will get covered under CISE. After completion of senior KG in preschool, parents ask which board they must opt for first onwards. Okay, so a lot of parents, and that's a good point that you've raised here, a lot of parents will want to be able to switch over to see which board should we go for, what are the options, etc., etc. Now, there are two routes to be able to think about this. One is some of the international boards, like the International Baccalaureate, known as the IB written over here, have some schools that are 0 to 12, all IB, right? So you can switch over to an IB school right at the beginning, or there is a very strong opportunity for someone to be able to switch over to a board when the student is in class 4 or 5, etc. Also, I usually tend to tell students that please try and be able to keep your child as much of in as much of a situation of a lower commute as you can when they are younger, so that you can get to them faster, they can get home faster, they're not spending long hours on a school bus, or you're not going to go trying to figure out who's going to go pick them up or what's going to happen. So try and keep them at a school that is closer to you kilometerage wise in the beginning part, so they can always switch to a different school in like fourth or fifth grade and be able to do that. And that's a really valid way to be able to look at it as well. If a parent is very keen on being able to switch to an IB board right at the beginning, then you need to be able to just sort of explain what that would mean. And it's a different style of teaching, and then I'll cover that with you. How do we help students decide which board they should go for after eighth? Now, that I'll come to in a minute when I'm covering this information. So you'll get an understanding of where we're coming in. Now, parents also, we have to remember, are a lot more anxious than they ever used to be. So they see a lot of the different options. Sometimes it's just trying to get clarity on what the boards mean and what they need to be able to do. I have had parents who come up to me and said that, listen, I'm going to put them, there's an option of being able to put them in a school that offers both boards. No, I think I'll stick to this one school because, later if this child wants to do this exam, and I'm like, the kid is in second grade. I mean, they're not going to go and give the exam right now, so you can relax. But parents get anxious. And I also understand that from that perspective that, once I put my kid in a school, I don't want to have to keep shifting them around. It's better that they're finishing everything from one place. I get that logic completely. It makes a lot of sense. So, but as a person who switched schools every 3 years because of my father's work, there is no harm in switching a school at any point of time, except when the student is in, say, class 11. Then I'm a little bit leery about having a kid switch school at that time, simply because of the fact that there are already established systems, process, you understand teachers, you already have a social circle, and then that's very upsetting because you're in the senior class and suddenly you're in a new environment. So it becomes a lot more painful to be able to do things. But let's cover the 4 boards and try and understand them a little bit so that we are able to get a little bit more clarity. So 4 boards mentioned on the screen. When we're looking at the numbers, of course, these numbers are dynamic numbers and they're going up as we go forward and go ahead as well. And when we're looking at these, but as you can see, we have 2 Indian boards mentioned, which is the CBSE and the CISCE, also known as the ICSE board. The other 2 are foreign boards or international boards, as they're known, which are the International Baccalaureate, which is the IB. The International Baccalaureate originated in Switzerland, and the Cambridge board, which has its origins in England. Okay. Now, in some places, when you will see Cambridge written in a school, you may also see within the system things like IGCSE, GCSE. These will be words that will be also associated with the word Cambridge. Okay. O level, A level, these are associated with Cambridge. So when you're reading about a school website or you're looking at a school website and they say we offer IGCSE, GCSE, O level, A level, then they're talking about the Cambridge board. So these are the words that are associated with it. And I'll explain a little bit about what that means here. So when we look at the Indian boards, what we get to be able to understand here is simply this, that the CBSE, as we can see based on the numbers, tends to have the highest reach in terms of the number of schools affiliated to the CBSE. The ICSE is an extremely equally strong board, but the numbers do tend to be a little bit limited for a number of reasons. Some things are a little bit state driven. Some of things are the ones, the fact that, in terms of the books they're using, there's a difference, and there are differences between the two boards as well. The commonalities, let us talk about first. The two boards both offer 3 streams. Okay. So there is the science, the commerce, and the humanities. 3 streams will get offered. If you go to the CBSE website, nowhere does it state that you have to choose your subjects according to streams. Nowhere. It says you can choose whatever subjects you want. So according to the CBSE website, I can logically choose history and biology and math and political science and business studies if I wanted to be able to study it. That can be a legit combination I actually make. But what happens on the other end? Now, why do we end up having streams in the first place? The reason we have streams is the following. My higher education says, in order for you to study X, Y, or Z, say engineering or medicine or X, Y, Z, whatever subjects, you need to have studied the following subjects in school. So I want to do engineering. Great, you can do engineering. Now, is it saying you can do physics and maths? Or no, I need you to study physics, chemistry, and maths. Oh, so I need to have taken physics, chemistry, and maths in my schooling. That means what happens is my higher education is sort of reverse engineering what is happening when it comes to my streams. The boards are saying, pick whatever you like. No problem. But we are driven by what higher education requirements are. So because there was going to be confusion and all of those things, we ended up saying, no problem. Let us do it differently. Let us do it in the way that let's just offer these subjects in school. So problem solved. If a student has figured out what they want to do, let them go ahead and take physics, chemistry, or maths, or physics, chemistry, and biology, and then go and give the NEET exam and not have an issue. Let them meet eligibility criteria. So physics, chemistry, maths, physics, chemistry, biology, the commerce subjects, the humanities subjects in different permutations and combinations. What subjects are offered are dependent on the school. Not all schools will offer all the subjects. So some may offer psychology, some may offer sociology, some may not. All of those are a combination of what is being offered there. It's on availability of teachers, etc., as well. All the streams require you to study English. That is the common subject everybody requires you to study. Right? So you have to study English and then you pick other subjects to go with it. Now you can take different permutations and combinations and you study this. In the CBSE process, what does tend to happen is the stream choice of when I get to make this choice happens at the 10th grade level, which means I have to study all subjects till I am in class 10. That means history, geography, civics, all the sciences, maths, everything I have to study till I'm in grade 10. At grade 10, there is a cusp in which I make a switch and I switch over to then getting into my stream. So I'll get into my science, my commerce, or my humanities. I'll keep my maths. I'll drop my maths. All of that happens. In the ICSE system, that choice factor happens twice. In that sense that students may actually already make a choice of, I don't want to do maths and science at the 8th grade level. In my personal opinion, that's really early. Because I mean, unless there's a really serious issue, I really strongly feel the student should be allowed to study everything till a particular stage and then be able to decide where they're able to make a better decision. Because what happens is, if a student has left science in their 8th grade in an ICSE system, they cannot go back to it at the end of 10th grade when they make another set of subject choices. So what that ends up doing is, turns around and tells the student that, oh, you might have developed another interest or a thought process in the last 2 years, but now we can't reverse any of that, right? So it ends up limiting their options. So when it comes to ICSE students and if they're dealing with maths and science from the perspective of, I just don't like it, I don't enjoy it, I'll have to work hard, I urge them to be able to try and be able to hold on to those subjects till they are in 10th. So that they at least have the option of then be saying, yeah, I don't want to do this. I've completely decided. I'm totally clear. Or be able to say, okay, no, I think I have an interest that has developed. that I'm going to want to require a maths for or a science for, and I'm going to then be able to make that choice. So that's the one element that we need to keep in mind, that in ICSE, the choice happens at a slightly earlier stage, which is in 8th. And then there is a second round of choice that takes place in 10th. In the ICSE system, what is interesting is the 3 streams are available to me, but now what happens is they're available with a little bit more volume. So the ICSE students tend to have a slight advantage over the CBSE students in a lot of areas, where they go into more depth on a lot of things, concept-wise, analysis-wise. So things like literature, grammar, things, those areas for ICSE students tend to be slightly stronger than for CBSE students. The CBSE will cover, but it will cover a little bit more in a narrative format. The ICSE dips its toe a little bit more in the analysis of things. So if you're reading a poem or you're reading a story or a prose, you are able to then do the analysis of it as well. So a little bit more analysis taking place there. So this is CBSE, ICSE. Now let us talk about how the IB and the Cambridge are structured. I will go back one more, sorry. In the ICSE, along with my being able to do the subjects that I have to study, I am also required to do something called SUPW, Socially Useful Productive Work. All right. Earlier, way back, this SUPW used to be some sort of a skill, like knitting or sewing or woodwork or carpentry or something, which was you are teaching a vocational skill and a skill to the student as well. Now, the SUPW could include any one of these and could also include community service. It could include other skill sets. It could include other areas where you're doing maybe sort of like almost like an NGO sort of related work. So SUPW has now kind of broadened what all is available in it. The CBSE has also started off asking schools to be able to have students do something just beyond the academics as well, simply because the purpose for this is to be able to help students understand that you have to learn how to balance your time and to be able to do work outside of your textbooks and be able to not only be doing academics, for which of course we also have profile, etc., that has to be developed. Now let's look at the IB structure. In the IB structure, what ends up happening is there are a limited number of schools in IB that are IB affiliated. One, because you have to be a school for a number of years, and then you come and you do stuff in a particular manner, and then the IB sees, does an inspection and sees if you can become an IB school, and then you become a designated IB school, etc., etc. A very long drawn process to be able to get into becoming an IB school. The IB says you have to study something from each area, means 6 groups. There are the sciences, the mathematics, the social sciences, the creative, the literature, the languages. You have to pick one from each. You can't drop anything. So there is no dropping mathematics in the IB. You can take a slightly simpler or an easier version of the mathematics, but you have to take mathematics. You have to have a science. You have to have a social science. You have to have a language. You have to have something with English literature or English, and you have to be able to pick something from the creative area, which could be art or theater or music, anything that the school is able to offer. In case you don't have an interest in the creative side, like I'm not a painter, I'm not a dancer either, I'm not an artist either, I'm not any one of those things, I'm really not into theater, what do? I can then pick one more subject from the social sciences or one more area. So I'll be able to pick that up. Usually in the social sciences is where they allow you to pick the subject up again. So you end up picking 6 subjects. 3 of those subjects are studied at something called higher level, HL. And 3 of those are studied at something called SL, standard level. Now, this denotes the number of hours that are being spent. If a student wants to study psychology and they want to be able to do psychology in their college, it's a great idea for them to take psychology HL. That means they will study psychology for a longer number of hours in their 11th and 12th, right? So the IB program happens. It is known as the diploma program. Now, here I'm going to talk about only the diploma program, which is in 11th and 12th. I come to class 10. I can, in some schools, switch to the IB or continue with the ICSE or the CBSE. Both options are open to me. And these are the options that come in. I then get to choose from 6 subjects. Have you guys had your session on liberal arts, liberal education? Has the session on liberal education happened? I just want to be able to kind of,
yes,
I'm looking. Yes, yes. Oh, super. So if you want to understand what the IB is, the simplest way to understand the International Baccalaureate is liberal education in school. That's all. That's the easiest way. You're looking at a multidisciplinary method You're looking at studying different subjects, and that's what you get to be able to do. So IB is liberal education at the school level. The courses and the subjects that you're choosing, please note, are first year college level that is being taught to students in 11th and 12th. It's first year college. So difficulty level is fairly high. Okay. You choose one of these subjects, you choose from the six, and then in addition, you have to do something called CAS, creativity, action, and service, where community service, your ability to think beyond yourself, to understand that there is a world beyond you, to be able to be involved in school activities or other activities where you are involved with creative pursuits, you're doing something that involves activity, you're doing something that involves service. So CAS is a requirement for the diploma program. The other thing that students in 11th and 12th that have to be able to do the IB program will have to do is something called an extended essay. This is a 4,000-word essay that has to be written by the student based on research that they do. Now, the research can be primary, where if I choose a subject like science, I can say I'm going to do a biology experiment to be able to prove the following. And I actually do the experiment and then write a paper about it. Or the research can be secondary, which means I'm going to write about mental illness, and in psychology, I'm going to write about that. So I read peer-reviewed journals, I read books, I read all of this other information, and I write a paper based on all the knowledge that I have gained from secondary data. History, psychology, sociology tends to be secondary data one based, because there's a lot of confidentiality and all of those things involved in psychology. In addition, they have to also do a subject called theory of knowledge. Now, theory of knowledge is an amazing subject. It is the one subject that kind of ties all the subjects together. It is the element of being able to help a student understand critical thinking, critical reasoning, being able to understand the connection between the subjects. Example, I can be studying economics, and in one chapter on policy or demand or supply, there could be a theory of knowledge question on top that says, do you think, or does the culture of a country impact its economic policies? So now I am looking at economics from a sociology perspective, right? So it's asking you and forcing you to see the connections between your subjects and be able to do those. That's theory of knowledge. The IB will end up having these 6 groups. Now, what subjects are available depends completely on what is available to the school. IB teachers teach differently. It is a different process of teaching, and it is all analytical, completely analytical in nature. All right. Cambridge, our ICSE board and originally CBSE were actually based on the Cambridge. We based it on the Cambridge board. Again, the Cambridge says you can choose from 70 options of subjects, and please go to the Cambridge website to be able to see if there are some amazing subjects mentioned. What is available in India to us in different schools is dependent completely on what teachers are available. Right? So there will be, school will offer you a range of subjects. In 11th and 12th, the student, in 10th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th, the student will pick subjects. They will pick a variety of subjects. In the initial years of 9th and 10th, they will have a larger number of subjects that they can study, up to 8, up to 9 actually. And then in 11th and 12th, they can get rid of a bunch of subjects, keeping their subjects anywhere between 3 to 5 subjects, depending on the school. They have to also be able to do something called global perspectives and research, where they pick a topic that they're going to look at from a theory of knowledge perspective, sort of do the research, write about it, talk about it, present it, viva, that kind of a thing. All of that happens. Okay. So these are how the subject choices are made. In Cambridge and IB, the work areas and how you are studying is a lot dependent on peer-reviewed journals, on doing your research, to driving it yourself. A lot of analysis takes place over there. In ICSE, there is some level of analysis. In CBSE, still some analysis has started coming in, but still largely driven by narrative process, which is there is a blue tree, there is a green tree, how many trees are there, kind of a thing. In ICSE, it is what would be the significance of having colors on trees. In IB and Cambridge, it would be there are color trees and there is a significance. What do you think that the author was trying to convey through the different colors of the trees? And where do you think that the thought process came from? So it's a lot more in depth, if you can see, in terms of how the progression would take place, right? So these are the different areas. Now, if a student is picking something like a creative subject, even a theater or a music, please don't assume that this is going to be easy. If for a theater, the student will have to do theater history. They will have to present a soliloquy, which is a monologue. They are going to have to be able to write a play. They'll have to do a critique. They'll have to look at the movement in theater. They will have to talk about the importance of lighting. They will have to talk about the importance of directions that are written in a play. All of those elements. So whatever you are studying, you are going really deep into it. So that's primarily what you need to be able to remember when it comes to how the subjects are done. Okay, before I move to the next slide, are we good so far? Are there any doubts or questions that have come up in what I've explained? Any doubts or questions so far? No? Silence is consent? Okay, great. Super. All right, wonderful. Let's move to the next slide. So far, so good. Okay, thank you very much. All right, now let us see. Can a student who studies IB or Cambridge in India study in India? Yes, they can. Cambridge and IB is recognized by all institutes in India, national central universities as well as private universities. Can a student who has done IB or Cambridge go and give the JEE exam and do engineering, or can they give the NEET exam and do medicine? Challenging, because the methodology in which Cambridge and IB is taught is very different from how it is taught in ICSE and CBSE. So therefore, they are not going to learn it from the perspective of cracking the paper or learning it in the same way. Point one. Point two, in the Cambridge, it is still allowed to be able to take two sciences. In the international baccalaureate, you cannot take two sciences at higher level together. So if a student wanted to do the JEE exam in India, they would take physics higher level, chemistry higher level, mathematics higher level to meet the eligibility requirement. This means 3 college level courses are being done in school in 11th and 12th. Methodology for teaching these is very different from how it is taught in our Indian boards. Because in the IB and the Cambridge, I can disagree with the author, I can disagree with the teacher, I can disagree with what is written in the book. As long as I can back my argument up with proof, I will get the marks. So keep that in mind. And it's completely analysis. It is not about learning concept, cracking paper. It's not that. Okay. The CBSE uses NCERT textbooks. All our centralized exams use the NCERT textbooks as well. ICSE students look at the NCERT textbooks when they are studying for their central exams. IB, Cambridge, all of these are not, they're not using the same books. That's the main concern that ends up happening, right? So we need to be able to kind of keep that in mind as we go forward. Now I'm going to be able to try and see if I can answer some of the questions as we go forward. Hold on. How does a child decide in 8th what subjects to choose? So ideally, if you're doing the stream assessment or you're doing some sort of assessment, they can get an idea about what they want to be able to choose. You also have to be able to look at their academic scores to be able to correlate. That helps as well. But in my opinion, personally, really way too early. Post-COVID, quite a few parents look forward to keeping Indian universities options open. India University should always be an option, along with college applications abroad. How to justify picking up A-level despite the fact that it's difficult to score at par with Indian counterparts, which leads to less chance of getting selected in Indian colleges. So here, what will end up happening here is, it's a great question. You can end up doing the Cambridge, or you can end up doing the International Baccalaureate and still apply to a large number of the private universities in India, which will very happily accept the scores with no problem at all. And they are going to be able to get through to a larger number of private universities. If they're looking only at central universities, I would be a little bit worried in that perspective only, but you have to be able to open it up to look at private universities. And if they are in a school where the Cambridge or the IB is offered, they're obviously being able to pay that level of fee. So there's that aspect that needs to be kept in mind as well, right? Now, because the IB and the Cambridge are accepted in India, what does tend to happen is and it's analytical in nature, students have a little bit of an easier time in first-year colleges because they've already learned how to be able to do that analysis. But can a CBSE and ICSE student apply outside of India and be successful? Absolutely, 100%. Till the foreign boards were available in India, we were doing it, right? So we were applying. Is studying Cambridge as a benefit to foreign university? It can, only because you're already thinking about the analysis perspective and writing from that perspective. So that's the only advantage that comes in. And you're kind of studied the subjects at a certain level. So that helps. What about locally few schools following state syllabus? Like I mentioned, state syllabuses, I'm not going into state. But yeah, the state syllabus students can go ahead and give the national level exams. They will have to still study from the NCERT books to be able to give those. But I have heard that there are difficulty in clearing Indian entrances after 12th. Yeah, Indian entrances they won't be able to do because they're not going to be in that brain mode, right? How to be able to crack the NEET is very different from how you're studying biology in Cambridge and IB. So if somebody is very 100% clear that they want to do medicine in India, I don't recommend them to do the IB or the Cambridge at all. I tell them, please stick to the CBSE. It just makes more sense. That's when you're 100% sure you want to do medicine in India or engineering in India. Observe that some schools offering a choice between an Indian board and an international one. Yeah. So how is it possible? Is because they've got the certification for IB. They are certified as an IB school, and they're offering the choice to students to be able to either take the ICSE or the CBSE and or opt for the IB, usually in the 11th and 12th, where it is known as the diploma program. Okay. Methodology equals flip, blended, and traditional. Which one is good? All of them you need to, in order to be able to study or read any subject, you actually need to be able to employ all of those. You need to be able to employ. There are some things that can only be done and figured out through rote. There are those that you need to be able to create thought for. There are those where the students need to come back and do the research for you. So for any subject, ideally, it should be a blend of all of those. That's my belief. What can an IB student do if they do 11th and 12th from state board? What should they do next? No, clarify your question for me, Sunil. IB student, how, if they've done IB till 11th and 12th, till they've done IB till 11th and then they switch to state? Is that what you're saying? Does student who complete 10th from Cambridge have difficulty in moving to CBSE in 11th grade? No, they won't have difficulty. They'll have a little bit of a challenge from the perspective of they will be writing too much analysis and less analysis will be required. So they will struggle with writing more where less is needed. That's the only thing. If a child knows that he or she is not going to move abroad or do studies, then do IB boards have any purpose? They do. If a student is, and I'm glad you brought that up, because see, it depends a great deal on the kind of way a student likes to learn. If a student feels very strongly about the fact that they want to be able to do things that allow them the ability to read outside of the textbook, they want to do a little bit more research, their orientation comes stronger on informative, they are able to handle, they like reading, they like being able to write, read, look at different perspectives, then the IB and Cambridge can be an outstanding board to be a part of. It really teaches you how to look at multidisciplinarity. It teaches you how to it shows you how all your subjects are connected to each other, and it shows you how, these aspects can be utilized. So that way, it's a really great board to be able to look at, or to look at the foreign boards from that perspective. Mostly students unable to observe about study after 10th. It depends on what they want to be able to do. I'm disagreeing with, but here in Jaipur, there are some schools that are taking admission night teaching. I agree with you. You are not disagreeing with me. In my opinion, 120%, this has been a problem that has been taking place with a lot of schools where they say they are an IB school, but they will go ahead and still choose CBSE methodology, which is absolutely ridiculous. In fact, actually, CBSE methodology, it doesn't work with an IB subject. And the student, unfortunately, we suffer in the long run. And that's really sad because if they're doing that. They did IB in all education, then 11th and 12th from state board. I would want to know why they would want to switch to a state board at that point of time, because it's going to be a massive struggle for them. It's going to be really, really massive struggle for them. I would not honestly recommend something like that to happen. What can ICSE commerce student with accountancy major in 12th with the next best option? What is the next best? What an ICSE student with accountancy in 12th? You BCom, BBA, career-wise, financial analyst, cost management, so many options. Good psychology, sociology, these are all open. For eligibility issues of Indian colleges, I think one must continue IB board and separately appear for open NIOS to get mark sheet. If you know, the Indian universities will take your IB transcript. IB scores are accepted in all Indian universities, including Central University. They will accept the transcript. You don't need to do open NIOS to get a different mark sheet. Your transcript is a valid document. International board in the Indian perspective is fit for our students because after completing formal education, they can choose higher education. They can. The international board works, the CBSE works, the ICSE works. All four boards can give you admission in India, and all four boards will give you admission outside of India. Just think of it this way: when the IB and the Cambridge were not available, we went abroad. People went abroad to study. No, so the Indian boards are great. There's nothing better, worse. It's about how the student likes to study and what they'd like to do. what would be the best grade for a student to decide to move from Cambridge to CBSE? Someone who's not clear what she wants to do. Ideally be able to see if the student can move and say like an eighth grade. It might be easier if that ability still is there. The whole schooling was IB board. 11th and 12th got into college in India. They should what should they do next? Depending on what they're studying, I am hoping that they're looking at private universities. They can still do liberal education. They can go ahead and study any particular subject as well in a private university. Be able to check those. Do foreign universities give any weightage to IB students over CBSE? So yeah, great question. The IB students will get a little bit of an advantage on the subjects that they have taken. For example, if I want to say study biology and I have taken higher level biology in 11th and 12th, then in my foreign universities, I do not need to do the first year biology program. I do directly go to second year biology class. Same for psychology, same for other subjects. So there are some requirements. So like if there are certain subject requirements, those will be removed. Or say I don't need to do, mostly it's not needing to do the first year of that subject. Can an IBCP student with a subject combination of 1HL, 1SL, 2DP, and CRS take up a paper in NIOS? Yeah, you can take a paper in NIOS to be able to get an additional subject, definitely. The IBCP program, I'm still a little bit ambivalent about, actually, honestly. But yeah, great. I mean, it's giving an option of being able to explore for someone who's not wanting to be able to do the full DP program. Why is there a huge cost difference between CBSE versus IB schools? Primarily because I think it has to do a lot with the fee and the certification process. Also, IB teachers are trained in a different manner and they learn and are trained in a different methodology and how they want to be able to do. The books are more expensive. All of those things come into the picture. So yeah, you also have labs have to be at a certain level. Your opportunities in terms of leadership, your library, this, that, the other, access to things like journals, all of that needs to come in. So that cost racks up. That's why the cost is so much higher for an IB process as well as Cambridge. So that it's slightly more expensive because of those. So in addition, basically what I want to cover here is the fact that if a student is 100% clear that they want to be able to do an Indian engineering program and they want to give the exams for India, whether it's the BITSAT or the JEE or the Manipal or the SRM, Amrita, Shivnat, or whatever it is, does not matter. Please go ahead and stick to an Indian board. But with those subject combinations, they can still apply abroad for engineering outside of India. I'm just giving you an example. However, if an IB student has done physics HL and they have done the other aspects of maths HL and all of that, they will have a tougher time being able to do the exam. That's my biggest issue and biggest concern there, right? So that's the main element that comes in. Okay, so that's what I wanted to be able to cover here. Now, questions, doubts, confusion so far? No? Okay, great. All right. Let's move to the second part of what we want to be talking about and be able to cover that. Okay. Perfect. Let's move to the next slide. Let us move to the next slide here. So good. We've talked about boards a little bit. So you have a little bit of an idea there. We need to move to the next slide. All right. So we're going to talk about the audience that you are dealing with and who is it that you are working with here. And we will we'll go ahead and work through on that element and be able to understand that part, right? So let's try and figure that piece out. How many of you are 25 and under? Say me. 25 and under. 25 and under. No, nobody's 25 and under. Oh, 35 and under. Oh, some are 35 and under. 34. Okay. I am. Great. We have a whole 24. We've got some. We are getting some. I like it. All right. Superb. Okay. Good. 22. How many people are over 35? Over 35. I like it. So many over 35 people. Nice. Very cool. Now, I am so glad that we have gone ahead and had this chat, because this was basically to be able to let you know that everybody who's over 35 is a lot cooler than the rest of you. No, I'm just joking. It's not. That's not why I was saying it. So the audience that you are dealing with now, they're no longer millennials. Millennials are the ones who are about 22, 23 years old. Those will be the kids who you're dealing with in college. The centennials are the ones, and the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas are the ones. So there's a whole bunch of names that have changed, come and gone, that have happened. Now let's just look at what is it that we're looking at in terms of the audience that you're dealing with. The audience that you're dealing with is a very interesting audience. In fact, they are an audience that has had more information bombarded and thrown at them than any other generation before it till now. Okay. They have more access to more data than any other generation before it till now. They are able to assimilate and work with technology a lot faster than any others. They are living currently, and we are all living in an age where, which is a time of very rapid change and a great amount of innovation that is taking place, right? Now, the reason that this innovation is taking place, and right now we were in the middle of a digital revolution. Now we're inside, within that digital revolution, there is another revolution taking place. So there is another revolution taking place within a revolution. And a lot of the changes and a lot of the aspects of things that have changed have been driven by this generation that we are currently working with. In fact, they have been responsible for a lot of the innovations that have taken place that we utilize right now, whether it's social media platforms, whether it's anything else. They are all in the middle of being able to make these changes happen, right? So when you are working with them and when you're interacting with them, you need to be able to remember that they sort of see the world in a slightly different method and manner than anyone has seen it before. So let's try and understand what is it that what they are like, and what is it that we're thinking about, because you need to be better prepared in terms of being able to work with them and being able to deal with them. So you need to be able to ensure that you are doing that effectively. So let's move to the next slide and be able to help understand that a little bit more. So those of you who have studied psychology or management or a lot of other subjects, also goes through and touches on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'll quickly cover that with you for a little bit so that you're able to understand this perspective. Now, Abraham Maslow came up with a hierarchy of needs, and where he said that, look, this is basically a pyramid where you have to be able to deal with a lot of different needs that are there. Your primary need of physiology and your physical safety, breathing, food, water, etc., has to be sorted first. If you're not comfortable on those, you're not going to be bothered about culture and knowledge and all of those things. You're not going to be bothered about it. What you need to be able to have is the base of this first sorted. Now, once you get the base sorted and you have your safety needs taken care of, you then build friendships and family, and you build all of these aspects and relationships. And then you get to the point where you have confidence and you have job and you have achievement and things like that. The ultimate goal that everybody, according to Abraham Maslow, is gunning for is self-actualization, where you are looking at the top of this pyramid, where I move away from judgment. I move away from being, in a particular zone where I have prejudices. I have more accepting. I look at facts. I do an analysis. I have an element of creativity and spontaneity with me. I move away from, I move to a higher ground. So basically, is this level of nirvana, that nirvana-esque sort of thing that has to be achieved by an individual, right? So that's something that that Abraham Maslow said everybody is gunning for. And the ultimate goal that anyone has is to be able to reach the top of this pyramid. Now, what I want to be able to share with you is a generational shift. So let's move to the next slide. What we're looking at now is a generational shift. Students right now and the people who you are looking at right now are looking directly at the top of the pyramid. They don't care about the base of the pyramid. Food and nutrition, their livelihood, the base. No, they're going straight for the top. Just do click twice, please. So that you understand that what they're gunning for is right at the top. Everything else can wait, but except my legacy. My legacy is the most important thing. My impact, my legacy, what I leave behind is the most important. They are not worried about the base of the pyramid at all. They are gunning straight for the top right away. Now, why are they gunning straight for the top? Because the base of the pyramid has been taken care of. By whom? By me, by you, as parents, as uncles, as aunts. We have taken care of the base of the pyramid. Here is your phone, here is your iPad, here is your food, here is your shelter. We have taken care of the base. And we have also fed them a very steady diet of a message. Now, let us move to the next slide so you understand. They are receiving very, very, very steady messaging. The steady messaging they are receiving is the following. You are unique, just like everybody else, but you're unique. You're going to do great things. You, my friend, are going to change the world, right? This is a brilliant thing to be able to tell a child. I'm guilty of this. I've told this to my daughter. You're going to do great things. This is a great way to be able to bolster confidence. But interestingly, what I realized later on the flip side is this is also highly anxiety inducing for the child. Because later on, when they don't end up doing something great and they do something just about okay or average, they put a lot of pressure on themselves and suddenly they go, oh my goodness, what is going to happen? I failed. I'm a big failure. So that happens, right? We also tell them happiness and success are your right. Don't tell. I'm not saying you don't need to be happy or everybody should be unhappy and unsuccessful. Absolutely not. But what we forget to tell them is you have to work to be successful. There is work required in order to reach success, right? And to a large extent, you also have to be able to look at your self-awareness to be able to understand, unless there is actually a chemical issue, where you have to be able to understand what happiness is about and understand what what does happiness mean to you, right? We also tell them you have to find your passion. Oh my goodness, you have to find your passion. Otherwise, you're going to be doomed to this meaningless 9 to 5 existence. The number of students who come to me who are like, ma'am, please, I don't want to do a 9 to 5 job. And I always ask them, why is your company never going to have office hours? 9 to 5 is just office hours, right? Is somebody is going to do a 9 to 5 job in your company? Somebody will come from morning to evening only. They're not going to sit there 24 hours a day. So 9 to 5 is just that. But where do we tell them? We tell them that in our advertising. We tell them that when you are becoming, you have to follow your passion and become an entrepreneur. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in this 9 to 5, man, without realizing that, boss, you have to be able to figure out that all entrepreneurs are also creating a structure and an organization. Somebody will do a 9 to 5 in there. And you're not doomed if you're doing a structured job. There's nothing wrong with that. And you have to find your passion. You have to. And you will find your passion. Okay. But if you haven't figured out what your passion is by the time you're 19 years old, no, you're in trouble. It's all over. Right. What we forget to tell them is that finding your passion is a active process, not a passive process. You don't wake up one morning and go, aha, my passion, I figured it out. You have to do things. You have to try things. You have to try dance and music and horse riding and painting and theater. And you have to go and try biology and chemistry and physics and math. You have to do different things. You have to take different courses. You have to try different things. That's the only way you're going to be able to figure it out, right? I'm just going to take a quick pause. I'm so sorry. I'm repeatedly getting a phone call from a number and it seems to be some sort of an issue. Just give me 1 second.
Participants, we hope that like during the break there were certain questions related to the education boards. I hope your queries related to the same has been resolved upon, and has anyone has any doubt related to the same now? Yes, Miss Shivanand, ma'am is just joining in a minute or two. Everything is fine. Ma'am is just joining. She got certain call, so she's attending to that.